You've heard of Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, but there's one god they tried to erase because fear itself was his offering. He didn't demand temples or prayers. He just wanted to see you run. In ancient Greece, the forests were haunted, not by ghosts, but by a god with a goat's legs, a hunter's grin, and a laugh that could drive you mad. He could charm you with his flute, then send you fleeing in blind panic. They say if you were alone in the wild and your heart started pounding for no reason, that was him, stalking you from the shadows. And here's the thing, no one could stop him, not even the mighty gods. Who was this god so feared, so dangerous that even his name still echoes in our nightmares? His name was Pan, half man, half beast. The word panic? That's his legacy. Pan didn't want temples. He wanted chaos. This isn't just mythology. Pan's legend shaped how we understand fear itself. From ancient rituals to modern horror, his story still echoes. And tonight, we'll dig up everything the myths left buried. Pan's forbidden stories of terror, madness, and the true price of ignoring the wild. It's the root of every horror story you know. What makes a god so terrifying? His own mother runs from him at birth. Why did the ancients believe panic itself was a living, breathing force? Legend says Pan's first scream echoed through the mountains the day he was born. His mother, a wood nymph, gazed into the face of her newborn, a child with goat's legs, horns, and wild yellow eyes, and fled in terror. Even the gods on Olympus, so used to monsters and marvels, shuddered when they saw him. Hermes, the trickster, carried the infant to Olympus wrapped in a sheepskin. The gods laughed nervously, but none dared mock the wildling outright. There was something about Pan, something untamed, unpredictable, and old. From the moment of his birth, Pan was fear. Not the logical kind, but the primal, skin-prickling terror that hits when the wild closes in. To the Greeks, panic wasn't just a feeling. It was Pan, reaching out from the dark. He belonged to the wild, to places civilization feared to tread. In every lonely forest, every howling gorge, every misty cave, Pan was there. The Greeks whispered that he could melt into shadows, vanish into mist, and appear behind you just when you felt most alone. But what happened when you met Pan in the wild? That's where things get truly dangerous. Why did even warriors and kings lose their minds when Pan appeared? What horrors did his presence unleash in the deep forests and haunted hills? Picture a shepherd alone at dusk. The sun dips below the tree line. Suddenly, crack, a branch snaps. The air chills. From somewhere deep in the woods, a haunting melody rises. He grips his staff tighter, heart pounding. The music twists and turns, part lullaby, part threat. The shepherd runs, stumbling, certain something is at his heels. Or imagine a group of soldiers, confident as they march through a mountain pass. Then the shrill piping of Pan's flute cuts the air. A wave of dread rolls through the ranks. Soldiers abandon their posts, leaders shout in vain, but nobody listens. They scatter, lost to a fear that no sword can fight. The Greeks had a word for this: panic terror, a sudden contagious fright that spread through men and animals alike. No one could predict it, no one could fight it. To them, it was proof that Pan was near. This is why the ancients didn't see fear as weakness. Sometimes it was a warning. You'd strayed too far into the wild or crossed a line between order and chaos. Pan was the line, and if you survived the night, you never doubted his power again. But what did people do to survive a world haunted by Pan? How do you bargain with the god of fear? If Pan can't be defeated, can he be appeased? What desperate rituals did ancient Greeks perform just to keep their sanity and their lives? Pan was never worshipped in the city. His shrines hid in mountain caves, shaded springs, and forgotten groves. Shepherds and hunters would leave honey, milk, and wine at the forest's edge, never looking back, never daring to speak his name too loudly. There are tales of villagers haunted by the same nightmare, being chased through endless trees, always about to be caught, always waking with a scream. The next day, they'd slip out quietly, pouring a little honey on a stone or muttering prayers to the breeze. One legend tells of a group of boys who dared each other to mock Pan's statue by a lonely spring. That night, their laughter turned to screams. They ran through the fields, scratching their arms and faces, convinced something invisible was chasing them. In the morning, one was gone, never found. The others were silent for life. For the few who honored Pan, he could be generous, leading lost travelers home or blessing flocks. But he was never safe, and nobody was immune to his wrath. The message was clear. Ignore Pan at your peril. Follow the rituals and you might escape his notice. Disrespect him, and terror was all you'd inherit. For the Greeks, survival meant knowing when to be afraid and who to fear. But sometimes not even the gods were safe from Pan's unpredictable power. Could anyone, mortal or divine, control Pan? What happened when the wild god clashed with Olympus itself? There's a famous tale. Apollo, the perfect god of music, challenges Pan to a contest. The mountain god Tmolus judges. Pan's pipes wail, wild and untamed. Apollo's lyre soothes with its order and clarity. The crowd cheers Apollo, but the foolish King Midas dares to side with Pan. Apollo, insulted, curses Midas with donkey ears, a warning from the gods. Respect the wild or pay the price. But Pan's chaos wasn't all rage. In another story, when the gods fled from the monster Typhon, Pan transformed into a fish-tailed goat and jumped into the Nile, becoming Capricorn. Even Zeus owed Pan. At the Battle of Marathon, Pan's laughter terrified the Persians into defeat, earning him a shrine and offerings in Athens. No matter how mighty or civilized, the gods couldn't erase the power of the wild. The Olympians might rule the world, but in the mountains, at the edge of the map, Pan reigned, and all knew it. But time was running out for Pan. The world was changing, and his chaos would soon take on a far darker face. Why did the god of wild places become the face of evil? How did Pan's horns and hooves end up on the devil? As Christianity swept the ancient world, the untamed became dangerous, even forbidden. Pan's image, horns, goat legs, wild grin, morphed into the icon of Satan. His once playful pranks became evidence of demonic trickery. Stories about Pan haunting the woods turned into tales of the devil's midnight Sabbaths and witches' dances. Medieval villagers whispered of the Horned One lurking in the shadows, tempting those who strayed from the path. His laughter was the cackle of hell. His pipes became the devil's instrument, the sound that led the faithful astray. But even as his temples crumbled and his name became a curse, Pan's essence survived, buried beneath the surface, waiting for the world to remember what it feared most. Fear doesn't vanish, it changes form. The wild god might be gone from the shrines, but every time you feel the urge to run, to scream, to surrender to the unknown, that's Pan, still haunting the edge of every shadow. And then, in the age of reason, Pan came back to claim a new kind of terror, one that would haunt minds, not just forests. What if Pan never really died, but slipped into our nightmares? What happened when the Victorians summoned him back into the light? In 1894, Arthur Machen published The Great God Pan. The story begins with a dangerous experiment, an attempt to pierce the veil between worlds. What emerges is not just madness, but an ancient cosmic terror, the god Pan. Victorian readers were horrified. In Machen's tale, Pan isn't just a goat-legged trickster. He's the dark force behind every forbidden knowledge, every unspeakable act. Those who see Pan go mad, haunted by visions of something older, wilder, and more powerful than human reason. The story became a legend among horror writers. H.P. Lovecraft praised Machen, calling Pan a glimpse into the forbidden. In The Great God Pan, evil isn't just supernatural. It's the wildness we try to forget, the primal terror lurking just out of sight. For the first time, modern readers saw Pan not as a relic, but as a living nightmare, the god of cosmic horror, whose true face is always just beyond our understanding. In Machen's world, and maybe ours, Pan is the reason some truths are better left buried. But Pan's legacy didn't end in fiction. He lives on every time fear strikes without warning. What if panic isn't just an emotion, but a haunting? Why do we still use Pan's name for the terror we can't explain? Have you ever had a panic attack? A sudden, overpowering fear that floods your body, makes your mind race, and leaves you breathless? To the Greeks, that wasn't just nerves. That was Pan, striking from the shadows. From ghost stories around the campfire to horror movies where something stalks just outside the flashlight's beam, Pan's shadow lingers. He's the fear you feel in the woods alone, the dread of what's behind you, the urge to run with no reason. Even science can't fully explain panic. It's ancient, hardwired, and contagious, just like the myths said. Fear spreads in crowds, sweeps through armies, and breaks the strongest minds. That's Pan's gift, or his curse. No matter how civilized we become, we're never far from the wild. And in every story of terror, every whispered warning, Pan is still out there, reminding us that fear will always find a way. So what actually happens when someone comes face to face with the god of panic? Can anyone survive an encounter with Pan? There's an old Greek tale, one they told only in whispers, about a hunter lost in the mountains at dusk. For hours he'd felt something watching him, heard faint music that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere. At last, exhausted, he stumbled into a moonlit clearing. There in the shadows was a figure, half man, half beast, smiling with wild, ancient eyes. The hunter tried to run, but his legs locked. His heart thundered. He remembered every warning his elders gave. Never look the wild god in the eye. But it was too late. Pan's laughter echoed through the trees, and for a heartbeat, the hunter saw the world as Pan did. Untamed, full of danger and delight, beautiful and terrifying beyond words. Then as suddenly as it began, the fear was gone. The hunter woke at dawn, alive but changed. He never spoke of what he'd seen, but he never again mocked the darkness or the wild. That's the truth of meeting Pan. You survive, but you're never the same. You carry a piece of the wild with you, a reminder that no matter how safe you feel, fear is always close. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into darkness, don't just hit like and subscribe. Keep exploring with us. If you want to know what happens when ordinary people are swallowed by the unknown, watch the Blackthorn Journal, where the 6,500 soldiers marched with me into the fog, but only a handful escaped. It's a true story of fear, survival, and the secrets that still haunt the night. Click on it now, because the next tale might just be darker than the last. And remember, when the wild calls, don't look back.